In this special episode, Paul breaks down how he restores a badly neglected Indian sandstone patio. Step by step. Heavy black spot and failed pointing mean the job has to be stripped back before it can be rebuilt. It's about as bad as it gets, and jet washing hardly touches it, so Paul makes a switch to using much stronger chemical treatments. While grinding out the fractured joints, he finds extremely hard mortar and the job slows down to a crawl. At the same time, a long-standing patio clean has to be completed, and when that job overruns, it puts the restoration work under pressure.
Well, good morning. Monday, start of a new week. Today I'm in Harrogate and I'm working on a paving restoration job. We've got these Indian sandstone slabs, but they're really badly stained with all sorts of nasty things. And as well as that, a lot of the pointing is really broken up and damaged. And in other places there's loads and loads of weeds. So the customer wants the works, so I'm going to start with a deep clean and I'm going to go really aggressively with the turbo lance. See if I can lift out some of this pointing that's loose already. I'm then going to treat it aggressively with sodium hypochlorite to dissolve away some of these lichen stains. And after that, I'm going to grind out all of the pointing in readiness for replacing it. Just have a bit of a pause there. I've gone in with the turbo lance, so I've got that top layer of biofilm in, and that's revealing now these deep-seated lichens that are properly buried into this stone, and it's looking pretty bad, I've got to say. So this is going to take a lot of chemical at a high concentration to get it clean, but I've got to be mindful of time as well, because I've got to start grinding out all of this pointing, and that's quite a time-consuming job as well. So what I'm going to do is split this up into sections. I'm going to get some chemical down at this bottom end first of all and leave that a good while to do its work. Whilst it's doing so, I'm going to start grinding up at the top, and then I'll switch my focus, rinse off down here, start grinding and put more chemical up there. I might need to keep alternating back and forth so there's always something going on.
Indian sandstone can be very susceptible to black lichen, or black spot as it is commonly known. This paving really takes the biscuit though, and it is about as bad as it gets.
Right, so I've got my chemical down there. I can start work on the grinding out up here, but for the moment at least I'm going to keep my respirator on. Well, this mortar, even though it is pretty broken up and fractured, it's really quite hard and difficult to get out. I'm just going to take a short break from it, have a look at this chemical treatment it's working out. Well, it's a lot lighter and brighter down here, but there's still some serious staining, so I'm going to escalate the intensity of the chemicals now and apply it in a much higher concentration with a bucket and a brush. Starting to make some headway on this organic staining on the flags now, but I've got to say this is some of the toughest I've put it on. Oh, this mortar in the pointing is so hard, it's taken an awful lot of work to grind it out. And this area down here is looking fantastic now. It still needs a rinse down, but it really has come clean, and I've managed to get rid of all of the marks. In no small part it's because of this large oak tree. It'll just be raining down spores for all sorts of organic stuff. It'll just take root on this stone. And I think that oak tree could also be the reason why these slabs down here are so broken up. I suspect the roots are pushing the paving slabs upwards. Quite an interesting before and after with the stain removal up here. Take a look.
Paul is making much better progress at this end of the patio because most of the pointing is already badly fractured and it has been much easier to scrape out.
You know what, underneath all of that dirt and grime, these are really attractive slabs, the ones that have got the sort of the rainbow swirly colours through them.
It's Tuesday morning and Paul is driving to a small village near Harrogate for a long-standing booking to clean another dirty patio. It's a fair size and he's already promised yesterday's customer that her Indian sandstone will be repointed as well. If anything causes delay, his plan might start to unravel.
Concrete slabs, but frankly, they've seen better days. And the homeowner's holding her son's wedding reception here in a few weeks' time, and she wants to get it all spick and span in time for the big day. These are cast concrete slabs of different sizes. When they first came out of the factory and when they were laid 15 years ago, they would have had a glaze on them to give them a stone look. Most of that will have worn off years ago, although there might still be traces of it here and there. Overall, the slabs are grey in colour, but that's not original, I can assure you. That will clean away. And on top of that, you've got a patina of black and white lichens. In my experience, concrete slabs usually clean up pretty well, and I'm expecting that these will end up as sort of a light grey buff type of a colour once we're all finished. We've also got this concrete path to the side of the building which I've offered to clean as well. Bit of a goodwill thing. Well, I've got some petrol in the pressure washer, but the water pressure is a little bit slow, so I'm just going to wait until I've got a good head of water in the tank before getting underway. The pointing between the slabs has long since broken up, and in parts it's been filled with pea gravel. Customers just asked me if I'll give them a quote for repointing, so I'll just price that up whilst I'm waiting for the water tank to fill up. Material cost about £400. As for the labour, a lot depends on how easily this old grout comes out. If it comes out with the turbo nozzle, the pressure washer, as it may well do, that will be fairly low. If it needs grinding out, it's going to take somewhat longer. However, a lot of it has already gone. Well, I'm around the corner now and on to the main event. I've been in two minds whether to use my push-along flat surface cleaner or whether to go in with the turbo, but having just done a test patch, I'm going to go with the turbo. I think it'll be more effective at getting rid of these spotty lichens before I put any chemicals down.
Concrete paving slabs are usually one of the easier surfaces to clean, but these are heavily soiled with deep biological staining, and it all takes time to shift. With a slow water supply this morning and a repointing job this afternoon that can't be rushed, Paul is already falling behind.
Rich pickings for our blackbird friend. There must be lots of worms and insects coming up from beneath the paving. That's all the turbo work done now. Time to get rinsed down in readiness for putting some chemicals down. So this paving by and large has cleaned up really well. It's still quite spotty in places though. For a quick turnaround on the day, there's only one chemical solution for that, and that's sodium hypochlorite. Before I start applying it though, I'm just going to drench the grass to make sure that the chemicals don't cause any damage to the lawn. Right, I'll leave those chemicals to dwell for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and in the meantime I guess I'm on bird watch.
Paul takes health and safety seriously, and this also applies to the local wildlife.
Right, those chemicals have been working away now for half an hour or so. They've done a really good job. One or two little stubborn spots and one or two artefacts here and there, which I'll just take out now with the turbo. Well, I'm all done here, running a bit late for the next appointment, so I need to get cracking. It's come up really well and the customer is delighted.
Whilst dealing with inquiries and eating his lunch on the go, Paul must now drive to the far side of Harrogate, a town that's well known for annoying traffic delays.
So for the pointing, I'm going to be using a brushing jointing compound called Joint It Simple. In my opinion, it's the best product of its type on the market, and it's a market where there are some rather inferior products as well. I would say though that most of the problems that you find with brushing compounds are down to poor workmanship. An old trick is contractors laying the slabs on sand and cement and then putting a top dressing of compound only 2 or 3 millimeters thick. This is just completely wrong. The stuff's meant to be a full 25 millimeters deep. Another common problem, especially with slabs like this that have been laid on a dot and dab base, is that there's lots of gaps and voids underneath. And unless the jointing compound has been properly tamped down, it can just collapse into the joint and you end up with a right mess. With this job we've got some big old gaps, especially where we've had a lot of movement with the slabs down here, so I brought more compound than I would usually for a job of this size, and I'm going to be making a big effort to tamp it down with a bar and make sure that it's properly filling all of the gaps. And the first thing to do is to wet the whole area down, give it a good drenching. The product starts to cure quite quickly, so unless you're experienced with it, I just recommend using say half a bag at a time and then moving on to the next area, and that's what I'm going to do here. Now we just add water. The more water the better. You can't use too much water. Can't use too much water pressure though. Try again with the right nozzle. That one I had in is a bit too high pressure, a bit too fierce.
Rather than a stiff brush, at this stage Paul prefers to use a paving squeegee instead. It's more versatile and helps force the material into the joints. The rubber blade also makes it ideal for tamping the compound down into the voids beneath. With the material starting to go off, he then uses a pointing tool or a jointing bar to compress down a little more and to even out the surface. A soft brush helps to clear away the excess and to smooth over the slowly hardening grout.
And another important thing to bear in mind is to watch where you're standing, so you don't make a mess like I've just done here. There we go. As good as new. Another consideration to bear in mind is how you want to finish off the pointing. I prefer it to be nice and smooth and level with the slabs. That's why I prefer just using a soft brush going backwards and forwards very gently. Now, I could strike the pointing down with a rounded bricklayer's bar, but that would give you a bit of a depression, and that's where water can gather. In my experience, you'll get algae and biofilm and moss following that. And once the compound started to firm up, a good idea then is to give it a bit of a rinse down over the slabs, get rid of any little particles that are on the surface. If you don't, they'll stick to the slabs and it'll feel sandy underfoot. So nearly ready for the last rinse and brush down. I've got about half a tub of product left. The good thing about Joint It is if you reseal it in the container covered with water, you can keep using it for quite a few weeks. I keep some on the van all the time just in case I see a bit of touching up that needs doing on a patio clean. And we're done, and what a difference that is. Cast your mind back 2 or 3 days to where we started. What a transformation. Homeowner is absolutely over the moon.